This is for Algebra 1. We're going to be looking at the benchmark today. Before we go over the correct answers, let's talk for just a minute about the end of course. The Algebra 1 end of course will have 54 questions. 49 of them are multiple choice and 5 are griddable. We'll talk more about what I mean by a griddable question later on. There are 5 categories that are tested: functional relationships, properties and attributes of functions, linear equations and inequalities, and quadratic and other nonlinear functions. Don't really worry about the categories. You're going to be prepared for all of them. This is what the griddable question looks like. In other words, it's a short answer. Okay, there's a little bit of differences from the way we used to do griddables. It can be a positive or a negative number. So the first blank, you tell whether it's positive or negative. If it's negative, you have to put a negative sign and fill in negative. If it's positive, it doesn't matter. Okay? If you don't want to have to worry about which way it should be, always put the sign. The answer grid has what we call a floating decimal point. In other words, you get to pick where your decimal is. If you're going to have 4.5, you would put 4.5. Actually, that's a negative 4.5. Then you would fill in your 4, you would fill in your point, and you would fill in your 5. If you wanted, you could put your 4.5 over here. 4.5. And then you would fill in your 4 and your point and your 5. It doesn't matter where you do it, as long as you put them all kind of consecutive together. You do have to fill in the dots at the bottom. You don't have to use all of the boxes. You don't have to put zeros in the ones that you don't. They have to be consecutive next to each other. We're going to learn a little bit about the Math Man pretty soon. This is just a little tool to help you remember some of the tricks that you're going to use. So this is what the Math Man looks like, and we will go into him more in detail later on. So let's look at some of the problems. Look at number 1. A dentist made the scatter plot below to show that, by the way, I don't care if you read what's above the graphs. It just tells what's going on, and we really don't care. We just care about the math, okay? So we have this table, and which of the following best describes the correlation? Okay, how is it related? A positive correlation we know goes up. A negative correlation we know goes down. No correlation we know is scattered. And nonlinear would mean that it did not make a straight line. Okay? If we were to draw a line to hit most of the dots, our line would be going down. Therefore, it's a negative correlation. By the way, make sure that if you miss this problem, you're filling out your corrections paper. Any problems you missed, you have to fill out your correction form. Number 2, what is the vertex of the graph? X squared plus 6x plus 10. When you're finding the vertex, that's where it's changing directions. You're going to start by putting this into y equal. Anytime they give you an equation, the first thing that you have to do is put it into y equal. So clear that out, and you're going to have x squared plus 6x plus 10. Look at your graph just to kind of get an idea what it looks like. Okay, my vertex is going to be at the bottom. Okay, if it's a low spot, that means that it's going to be a min. So you're going to go second, calc, minimum, which is number 3. Go to the left or get before the vertex. Press enter. Go to the right until you go past the vertex. Enter, enter. May have to do a little bit of rounding. This is actually -3, 1. -3, 1. And so it's not that one, it's not that one, it is that one, it's not that one. So you have to go second, calc, min for this. Looking at number 3, which of the following best represents a system of equations that has no solution? You got to remember that a system of equations means 2 or more. No solution, well, you got to remember that the solution to a system is where they touch. So if there is no solution, they don't touch. I don't mean that they don't touch on the graph that you see. I mean they don't touch anywhere ever, okay? Which means that the lines must be parallel. These obviously touch. These, if you look and extend, are eventually, so you still don't see it, but eventually they're going to cross. These are going to cross pretty soon, actually. These are parallel. They will never touch, so it has no solution. No solution, don't touch. Number 4, a family will travel 350 miles from their house in order to reach Dallas. Which inequality can be used to find all possible values of t, the time it will take, if they travel at an average speed of at least r miles per hour. So you need to know distance is equal to rate times time. That's just a formula you just need to commit to memory. Distance equals rate times time. Our distance is 350. Our rate, we don't know. And our time, we don't know. All right, they had t by itself, so you need to get t by itself, which means that the r has to move over here and be divided. So 350 over r is equal to t. So that's not going to work. That's not going to work. That might work. That's not going to work. So your answer is H. There are going to be many problems that the way you actually find the answer is you rule everything else out, like we did on this one. Looking at number 5. The graph below shows the relationship between the number of dollars. Remember what I told you about what's above it? You don't have to spend your time reading it. It is a time test. You get tired of reading. I understand that. Therefore, you do not have to read what's above these graphs. What does the slope represent? Well, remember, slope is rise over run. If I'm going up, what am I talking about? Amount earned. If I'm going across, which is my run, what am I talking about? Time. So your slope is amount over time. So the number of hours to earn 320, the amount per hour, amount over time, amount per hour. The amount earned for 40 hours of work, or the number of hours worked for each dollar. It's going to be rise over run. It's earned over time, which means money over hours. Number 6, the perimeter of a rectangle is 42 centimeters. The length of the rectangle can be represented by x plus w, and its width can be represented by 2x minus 7. What are the dimensions? Okay, first of all, what's dimensions talking about? Dimensions are going to be the lengths of your side and your width. So length and width are the two dimensions. So what's perimeter talking about? Well, it's talking about add all sides. So one of my sides is x plus 4, plus another of my sides is 2x minus 7. But that just gets me halfway around. So I have another x plus 4, and I have another 2x minus 7. And what did we say the perimeter was? It's 42. So that is equal to 42. So that has to be solved to figure out what x is. Now, you could either do it by hand, combine like terms, move things around, or you can use your calculator, and I encourage you to do that so you don't worry about sign mistakes. Y1 is anything before the equal sign, so 42. Y2 is going to be everything after it, so it's going to be x plus 4 plus 2x minus 7 plus x plus 4 plus 2x minus 7. And that got you all the way around. So when you have something at y1 and at y2, you're going to go second calc 5. You're going to give it a minute to draw. Enter, 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 and you get 8. So x is equal to 8. Now, be careful, because x is equal to 8. That's not your length, and that's not your width. So don't go in there and say, oh, my length is 8. There it is. That's not right. One of your sides, x plus 4, is the length. Okay, that's supposed to be an L. So your length is equal to 8 plus 4, which is 12. Your width is equal to 2x minus 7. So that would be 2 times 8 minus 7, which if you put in your calculator is 9. So your answer is actually J. Length is 12, width is 9. Number 7, which of the following equations are represented by the graph? Lots of different ways that you can go about this. My suggestion is probably pick a point. So this, now pick a good point. 0, -2 is a good point. 3, 0 is a good point. Either of those. You could put that into stat and get the equation. That's an option. Or you could put them in and see. If you use this point right here, because I don't like negatives, x is 3, y is 0. So I'm going to redo this first equation. Instead of a y, I'm going to put 0 equals -3/2 times, instead of an x, I'm going to put 3 minus 2. So I'm going to go to my calculator. I'm going to go to my home screen. And I'm going to put everything after the equal sign in there. -3 divided by 2 times 3 minus 2. And I get -6.5. Is that equal to 0? No, it's not the same, right? So that means that that is not my answer. So for equation number 2, you would say 2 times, and instead of x, we're going to put 3, minus 3 times, and instead of y, we're going to put 0. And this needs to equal 6. So I'm going to go to my calculator, and I'm going to say 2 times 3 minus 3 times 0. And I get 6. Is 6 equal to 6? Yes, it is. And so that's a good choice. But I've got to check the other ones too. Instead of y, I'm going to say 0 is equal to, instead of x, I'm going to say 3 minus 2, and then 3 minus 3. So at my calculator, I'm going to say, open parentheses, 3 minus 2, close parentheses, open parentheses, 3 minus 3, and I get 0. Is 0 equal to 0? Yes, it is. And so this is a good equation. Then you're going to try this last one. Instead of a y, I'm going to say 0 minus 2 is equal to 2/3 times, instead of x, I'm going to say 3 minus 6. So in your calculator, 0 minus 2 is -2. And then we're going to do the right side. So we're going to say 2 divided by 3, parentheses, 3 minus 6. And I get -2. Is -2 equal to -2? Yes, it is. So the bottom 3 are actually good ones. So it needs to be 2, 3, and 4. 2 and 4, maybe. 1 and 3, definitely not. 2 and 3, maybe. 1 and 4, definitely not. Okay, I can't have 2 that are the same. So we need to go back and check. We made a mistake somewhere. Okay, or I made a mistake somewhere. Looking at number 2 again, I'm going to change color so we can see me do it the second time. This point 3, 0, that's going to be 2 times 3 minus 3 times 0. It's got to equal 6. 2 times 3 is 6, minus 0 equals 6. That one is a good one. So let's look at number 3 again. We've got 0 is equal to 3 minus 2 times 3 minus 3. And that's 1 times 0. So that one is still looking good. So now we've got, for the third one, 0 minus 2 is equal to 2/3 times 3 minus 6. -2 is equal to 2/3 times -3. And that is still, so all 3 of those, I did the work right. I didn't make a mistake. So what I want to do now is use a different point. So let's use our 0, -2. Now if you notice, 2 is in both of them. So really it's 4 and 3 we got to worry about. So let's do 3 first. Instead of a y, I'm going to put -2 is equal to 0 minus 2 and 0 minus 3. Okay, I took my new x and y. So on my calculator, I'm going to say open, 0 minus 2, close, open, 0 minus 3, and I get 6. Is -2 equal to 6? It is not. And so that looks to me like this one is a bad one. Go ahead and check 4 just in case. It's going to be -2 minus 2 is equal to 2/3 times 0 minus 6. -2 minus 2 on your calculator. -2 minus 2. Let me try this again. -2 minus 2 is -4. When I do the other side, 2 divided by 3 times 0 minus 6 is -4, and that does work. And so the fourth one is a good one. And so it's going to be 2 and 4, so your answer is A. There's other ways to do it, okay? I'm just trying to find the one that lets your calculator